Hey, True Believers, England Teen here, and it's Top 10 Tuesday, and this time we have a guest. Hello to Howler Mouse.
What's up?
How are you doing, my friend?
Pretty good.
4 years I've been on YouTube. This is the very first time you have graced the channel. So instead of talking about what we're talking about, I'm just going to grill you on that fact. Stop. No, I'm just no, it's all right. It's all right. Guys, if you don't know, I have named Howler Mouse as one of the inspirations for me to jump into the identity politics thing. He got out of that swimming pool a lot faster than I did, and I kind of wish I did that as well.
3 videos and maybe 2 or 3 over the years.
Yeah, right. For me, it was 3 years, and yeah, it doesn't take long for you to realize, I guess, that when you do that, people are really into the drama rather than the comics. I like talking about comic books, and I'm glad to have you guys here because I know you guys do too. I have often said that I'm called Old Man Comics. I know a hell of a lot about comic books, but I will concede to the one, the only, the Eric Breen. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Tonight I kind of feel like a backup outfielder, in the presence of Mantle and DiMaggio.
If we get ripped off the air, it'll be like, oh my gosh, Howler Mouse and England Teen and that other dude. Yeah, right. Just joking, by the way, of course. No, Eric. Thank you very much for the super chat from according to Christie. Guys, check out her channel. She's been growing pretty quickly, doing a lot of live streams. Her and her gang over there. How you doing, to Paolo? I'm coughing, no corona though. All righty. Yeah, that's why we're keeping it to 3 people, because if we go over a certain number, they'll yank the video. Hello to Kriniz. How you doing? Just for Comics, what's up? I'd love to join the live stream. And one day, perhaps. This is a bit more of this is a bit more structured than our normal streams are. But definitely, if you have a topic and would like to come on, let me hear about it at England Teen on Twitter. Because Eric and I, we've talked about this. We do have an open door, and if you guys disagree with us, we're willing to hear it. We're willing to listen. Just understand, one thing that has been known to be true, and my wife has come to accept, is that England Teen is always right. Am I right, honey? And she shook her head because, radio. All righty. So, so tonight's topic, I thought this would be a really interesting one because there are so many great comic book characters out there. But and there's so many great comic book stories. You got Dark Knight with the Batman. Even the new Teen Titans has the Judas Contract. But there are some really, really good characters out there that don't have that great story. One of the rules is they could have a great run. Everybody's allowed to have a great run, but still within that run, there's not that great story that they talk about. And feel free to argue. We may bring up somebody who's your favorite and you think, whoa, hold on there. They have this. We love to hear it. We'll love to hear it. Maranya saying, welcome everyone to this historical live stream with Howler Mouse, Eric Breen, and England Teen. Rock on. Eric is the third wheel, says Nightwing.
That's the most accurate I've seen so far.
Someone get Eric out of the cotton candy machine. Yeah, what is up with the lighting? I think he loves his pink curtains there in a disguise. I think that's what's going on.
I cannot for the life of me figure out how to do anything about that.
Okay.
I'd love for you to be able to see my America Chavez #1 behind me, but the light just obscures it.
By the way, Howler Mouse, you behind the scenes, you told us that it was She-Hulk, the John Byrne She-Hulk, that caused your channel to grow.
Yeah, back in the day, when I started this, I didn't even know there was a community on here. I mean, we're talking way back in the day. It's completely different. I would say there was 75 to 80 people, including the people that watched the videos and commented along with other channels. I was like generation 1.5.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, when people started talking to me and I started finding these other videos through a guy named Captain Strangelove, Constant Bromstar, very few of these people are still around. I finally got my act together and I figured out, okay, I'm just going to talk about John Byrne She-Hulk, my passion, my love. I bought it off the rack. And then all of a sudden, like I said, I started getting a lot of people subscribing to me over like practically overnight. I jumped up a couple hundred from that one video. I still get comments every now and then, as ancient as it is.
You had to live with that trash being your number one. Let's put us into the thing. I got America Chavez, sir. That's what put me on the top. That is the yeah.
Well, we were the guys in that particular video. Is believe it or not, we kind of came up with like some of the language. Like I get credit for the Holy Grail comment towards a comic and the format to actually show comic books on here. Now, it's years ago. I'm like a dinosaur around here. You know, my channel has peaked, plateaued, gone down, plateaued, come up, and stuff like that. And it's just been wild to see people come up with different formats to show comics and stuff. Now, the American Chavez stuff, I really feel for you guys. I feel so bad for you guys. I actually read one issue of that. I
loved it. I've done 30-minute videos ripping into those books. I am very happy to do so. I've actually got 5 left to do. So sometimes I'll get around to them. So anyway, we're going to get on topic here. We are on Tuesdays. I like to do a top 10 because we have a guest here. We are going to actually be doing a top 12 just to round out the numbers here. And Howler, you're the guest, so we're going to let you start off. Who was the first person you have here? You did you write down the names as I was going, or do I have to feed them?
I think I'm good. I'm good. Okay. The first one we talked about was Dr. Fate. Okay. Now, Dr. Fate started in 1940. He's a Gardner Fox creation, early days of comics, 80 years old this year. And Dr. Fate has such a rich history through comic book history to begin with. Started out in the 40s with that pulp magic feel, the Taras, the Spectre, and things like that. He was in Justice Society. You go up into the 60s there. He was responsible for the JLA Justice Society crossover, the very first one. You go through the years. Roy Thomas goes to DC. He's in the All-Star Squadron. And we go on up. He had a couple of he had a mini series. He had a James DeMonte's run. He messed around with the New Gods. He's had other people. For people who don't know, Dr. Fate is actually an amulet and the helmet of an ancient Egyptian wizard named Nabu, I think, or something, right? Where does the person wearing the helmet start? Where does Dr. Fate begin? Lords of Order, Lords of Chaos. He's just got such rich history, and there's so many things to pull from. The only place I've actually seen him, in my opinion, reaches close to his full potential was Jeff Johns' GSA run, where he ended up bringing in Hector Hall, Hawkman's son, as Dr. Fate. There's just 80 years of history that actually, in an odd way, has been consistent. And everything that they've done with Dr. Fate has pulled from elements of his past and origin, without changing anything that nobody really touched on. They would mention it, but Jeff Johns was the closest person I know to actually elevate him. And he tied him in with Neil Gaiman's Sandman, one more layer that you could play around with Dr. Fate. It's always been Dr. Fate or the Spectre that kind of give you the idea those are the two go-to big cosmic level magic stuff. There's just so much there to pull from. He's been a woman. He's been a man. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I
can tell that I'm in trouble. I should have done some research before I started this list. You two are gonna bury me.
I'm shooting from the hip, brother. Dude.
Oh, okay. You took notes.
Oh, no, that's my list of original guys where I didn't do the homework right.
I swear, when you're holding stuff up that are just freaking green screening, I have no idea what's going on with that. But yeah, by the way, I have read that Jeff Johns run. It's one of the few storylines I've got the whole trade paperbacks to. I'm surprised you brought up Dr. Fate, that our friend Dalton's not already on chatting us up and correcting whatever information you need to do. But you're right. There are no great stories from Dr. Fate. I honestly think it's one of the reasons is there's not a lot of people who really know what to do with them. I think after a while, they tried to do a Doctor Strange clone.
Well, there for a little bit, I mean, they mixed them up in the amalgam universe with Doctor Strange Fate, so they acknowledged that. But what happened with Dr. Fate is he was a plot device that we need to get like 2 teams together in the story, or we need something really weird to move this story along. So Dr. Fate does his, or Dr. Strange does, Dr. Fate does his magic, you know, and we can move the story on.
Dr. Strange.
And Dr. Strange Fate was actually has a cult following for just his, you know, actually 2 appearances back in the 90s. And I actually got to meet Ron Mars at a comic book convention. I think it was last year, 2 years ago, and we talked a little bit about it. He signed it and stuff. But Dr. Fate, it's when he gets elevated, like in the Justice League of 1987. He really didn't do a whole lot. Here comes the green screen. It's affecting the yellow. That's funny. Yeah, but it's you know, just it wasn't until really Giffen and James DeMonte's really tried to put him to the forefront and give him, you know, his supporting cast and plots, and let's play around with some of this history and ideas. So it's like he's always kind of been on the brink, but nobody has elevated him to have that story. You know, he could easily handle his own, you know, like Dark Phoenix saga, Dark Fate saga. He's
absolutely. Considering they play him off as Paolo is saying in the comment section, when Dr. Fate isn't being used as a Dewey Ex Machina, he's being used as, you know, crazy guy.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's see. Good to see you alive and kicking. Yeah, the heart attack scare a while back. I'm glad to say turned out not to be. They didn't tell me what it was. We're assuming it was stress, but I certainly appreciate the super chat and the good wishes. Thank you very much. Dr. Fate to me is a supporting character, kind of like Morgan Freeman, never the main star, and that's okay with me. Constantine is the main magic star, says Venkman. There you go. My character, my first one is actually the first character that really got me into comic books. I've told this story. I've actually got a video on my channel, Old Man Comics, where I talk about how I went to the library with my family, picked up a big collection of Golden Age stories, and there it was, Police Comics #1 and Plastic Man. Oh, well, thank you for the visual aid there, Eric.
Nice.
Plastic Man, he's a lot of fun. You can enjoy every run of it. Oh, I was about to bring up that run of Plastic Man, as a matter of fact. One of the cheapest Bronze Age key issues you're going to find, if you want to call it a key issue. It's entertaining as hell, and I've loved this character all the way through. This is a character, in all honesty, that whenever he's on, they are writing him properly. They are writing him as a bit of a lech. He's not a complete villain. He used to be a thief, but he's always had kind of a code of conduct, and he's funny, and he's a comedic character. And that's what he's there for. And even though they do write him well, they do write him right, they've never written that big story. He's had great moments. Him fighting Dr. Polaris in the JLA run, and he's, why can't I find the iron in your blood? And he's going, don't got none, and he starts slapping around. I love bits like that. Him being the one to go after Martian Manhunter when he went crazy because he could stretch his mind. He's had some great moments. Unfortunately, he's never had that one really good story. And if we're talking about the past, we got to throw out little facts. There you go. Like I said, Police Comics, created by Jack Cole. There you go. Because you were doing all that stuff, so I'm going to toss that in there.
Yeah, throw it out there, man.
Jack
Cole with his tragic ending, but he left this character that's outlived him. Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. I think I've got that somewhere. Yeah. Oh, what a fun time to be a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, those of us with gray in the beard, our childhood was better than yours. That's all we're gonna say.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. But I mean, I'm right down there with you on Plastic Man. The closest I can think of somebody actually trying to be serious with him was Mark Waid during The Kingdom, where he had a son called The Offspring.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that one.
Yeah, The Offspring, and they tried to be a little bit. It didn't really work. It was too serious. Plastic Man is not a parent. You know what I mean? Like he's supposed to be funny and the comedian. He's the epitome of comedy in comics, in my opinion.
Well, the Kingdom did not hold up to Kingdom Come. That was a bit more sanctimonious, I think, than the other. Let's see. Plastic Man is one of my favorite characters from DC. He has gotten some good stories and moments in Grant Morrison's JLA run. Yeah, that's. Oh, and the Terrifics. You're right.
Yeah.
Great so far. That has been, I don't think it's really had a valley. It may have had a little dip, but it's like, oh, it's great. And now it's only good. You know, what about that? Unless your childhood had video games, I disagree. Yeah, we did. And they were like Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, the awesome ones from the beginning. Yes. Sorry, dude. Our childhood was better than yours. All righty. So
mine didn't even have those.
There we go.
Breen, what do you have for us?
All right. Luke Cage, Power Man. I'm lead off with there's your giant size #1 there to get an idea of what he looks like there. And yeah, Luke Cage was created in the early 70s as kind of like Marvel hopping on to another trend, and this being the blaxploitation films. So they created, a character named Carl Lucas, who was unjustly imprisoned for, trumped up drug charges. And while he was in Seagate prison, a guy named Noah Bernstein offered to, he asked if he would volunteer to do an experiment that could, possibly enhance his, speed and strength, whatever. And while that was going on, the bad guys, like one of the guards, a guy named Rackham, amped up the machine. So basically, the process went to 11, and he was trying to kill him. Well, instead of killing him, it just made his skin steel hard, and his strength increased probably 100-fold. So he broke out of prison and wasn't caught. So he decided to set himself up with a new identity, Luke Cage, and become a hero for hire. Well, this in the early series, fought a lot of guys that you would see in it'd be like the comic book equivalent of blaxploitation characters from the movies. And so the series went on for 40 something issues. Sales were dipping, and in the meantime, Iron Fist's own series had just been canceled. So Chris Claremont got the idea to why not put the two together. So they did in a 3-part story in Power Man from issues 48 through 50, and that involved a villain named Bushmaster, hiring Luke Cage to capture Misty Knight for him because he had found out that he was Carl Lucas ex-con and everything. So while he's doing that, he runs into Colleen Wing, and then eventually Iron Fist. And if anybody's read this story, the page where he just comes up behind Luke and says, "Mr. Cage, turn around." And the next page is a full page spread of him getting knocked into next week. But of course, being Luke Cage, he comes back and basically beats Iron Man to within an inch of his life. Well, they end up, as these things tend to do, they end up teaming up, and that led to a 75 issues of Power Man and Iron Fist. And then post that, there have been other iterations. There's been the Cage series, and eventually they got away from the blaxploitation character, and the costume that he wore throughout that series, gave way to street clothes, and he
I want the blouse. I'm sorry.
I do too.
I like the yellow blouse, the chain, the whole 9 yards, the pirate boots.
That was my favorite part of the TV show when he got caught up in the clothesline, and basically with the clothes that stuck on him kind of looked like that.
You know what? I took my daughter. We were at the comic book shop, and right next to each other, they had Power Man and they had Luke Cage. And I went, this is the big difference between back then and now. Look, superhero, guy in a hoodie. That's what we got. It's a superhero or a guy in the hoodie. Power Man looks so much freaking better in the yellow blouse, the tiara, the whole 9 yards. And I'll tell you what, you're a bad motherfucker if you're wearing a tiara out. And that's it. I'm going to beat your ass wearing a tiara. That should end it right there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the first place I saw Power Man was actually in Fantastic Four comics. He was a member of the Fantastic Four for a little bit. I think it was like 1975. I was reading those books a little bit later. And I want to point out, somebody was saying in the chat there, they're saying, he hasn't had any good stories. We're talking about he hasn't had the Power Man story.
Yeah.
Like Tony Stark's Demon in a Bottle, Dark Phoenix Saga, Galactus, right?
That's mine.
And what we're saying is that he deserves a story like that.
Oh, absolutely.
They missed an opportunity with him in the 70s to take him way up there and do a very brave story at the time.
Yeah.
I don't mean to jump in there.
Oh no, that's how we were going to set this up. I mean,
we want to be called out if there is a great story, but mind you, this is going to be a hard road to hoe because you've got three people who kind of know what they're talking about. So, but we don't know everything. There's an old saying about how we forgot more comics than you may have read, but the point being is, we've forgotten some. So if you remember it, by all means, bring it up. I love to hear the good challenge. But if you could come up with a Luke Cage version of the Dark Knight or of Demon in a Bottle, as he said, or for the Avengers, it would be
coming up with Galactus and
by all means.
Now you're not going to. The stakes wouldn't be that high, but again, I said that this 3-part story that brings the two characters together, and hell, if you just go back to like the first couple of issues of Luke Cage Hero for Hire, I mean that's impactful stuff. I mean, if you got past the whole blaxploitation thing, I mean, like I said, that was some serious subject matter that they were tackling, and then from the ridiculous or from the sublime to the ridiculous. Remember issues 8 and 9 when Dr. Doom tries to fleece him for a $200 bill, and he borrows the Fantastic Car to go to Latveria to get his pound of flesh, literally.
Yep.
And and Howler, I said, that's funny you brought up the joining the Fantastic Four. That was the first new comic I ever bought was FF 167. The first when I started becoming a collector, and then right after that was the 3-part Luke Cage joins Fantastic Four, and I was absolutely hooked.
And that was like a golden time and stuff, really for him because he was still a new hero, if you will, and putting him in the Fantastic Four. I'm convinced that exactly what it did to me. That's how I found him.
And he was in the Defenders before that.
Yeah.
I was lucky. My nephew, on one of my birthdays, he comes up. Oh, I got you pregnant. I just read that on the thing. I got you pregnant. No, he says, I got you a present. And I said, really? He goes, this is the kind of thing you like, right? And he handed me Marvel Essentials, Power Man, Volume 1. I was like, yes. In all honesty, I didn't think about getting it for myself. But when he handed it to me, I was like, this is exactly what I didn't know I wanted. So I read through, and they are some funny stories. So
I'm a little bit of a, I don't know what you would call this, but when I see somebody cosplaying Luke Cage, I give them a test. I walk by and I yell "Sweet Christmas," and I know who's there to play dress up and who likes the man.
So here's something I want to tag on. Kevin Vu saying we never got a really great Nightwing story, except Judas Contract.
Well, as a Titans fan, as a Teen Titans fan, the issue where Nightwing and Kid Flash decide to throw their costumes away.
Yeah,
I can't remember. It's in the 30s.
But
38.
He's Robin at that point.
Yeah,
he's not Nightwing, but he becomes Nightwing in the middle of the Judas Contract.
It's tricky. Yeah, I'm trying to get my mindset with everybody here. The Teen Titans run they did, it was 3.5 years of build up for these characters to grow up. So even though it's not a Nightwing story, I agree. Nightwing, the character that people know now, I'll agree with them.
Well, I understand that because you could say it was his beginning, but also I actually struggled with this because me and Breen came up with a list that we've got. I brought up, I thought of Robin. Okay, well, do you count that as part of the Robin may fit in there because Robin's nowhere to be seen in the Judas Contract. Because by the time it starts, he's Dick Grayson, and by the time it ends, but then so I think we could get away more with saying him than we can with Nightwing. Because Nightwing starts right in the middle, so he is a part of the Judas Contract.
I think with me is that if you're going to have a Nightwing story and you're going to bring up a Teen Titans story, that would be like comparing Batman with the Justice League. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Batman, just my point of view, Batman has his Dark Knight Returns. He has his Long Halloween, his Year One, and all that stuff. Nightwing deserves stories like those, but they don't need to be rehashed Batman templates.
His year what?
Batman Year One, stuff like that. Can you hear me?
Year one. What's
Batman
that?
Year One. I was
What's
talking.
that?
Oh, okay. You have Batman Year One, Batman Dark Knight Returns.
No, I'm fucking with you, man. I'm just saying, congrats. It's a hey, I'm hazing you, dude. I do that to everybody at some point. Sorry, man.
Totally
yeah, it's amazing how many one-time guests we have now.
Exactly, I know, right? Why don't people come back? That's so weird.
We had an awkward moment because I was like, "Do I be an ass?" Someone be like,
No, I'm just messing with you. And here's the thing: we actually brought this up in the beginning, Jim. They can have a great run,
yeah,
because we're going to bring up a couple of people here who have great runs, but even within that run, they don't have that one big story.
Yeah.
But we love. I mean, look, Nightwing was brought up. It caused a debate. So what do you guys think? Obviously, me and Howler were on opposite sides, although he made a great point about if you're going to bring up Nightwing and it's a Teen Titans story. So yeah, perhaps. But there you go. That is so. What do you guys think? Do you think Nightwing should count on this list, or do you think that a story such as the Judas Contract made him, or should we count it as a Titan story or Nightwing story? I leave it to the comment section.
Yeah, if I was going, I mean, just to throw it out there, if I was going to say a character for who the Judas Contract was really about, it would have been Changeling for me, because of Terra. I mean,
yeah, that's a good one. But no, I think you won the argument with that. Personally, I think you changed my mind even on that one. Alrighty, so where are we standing here again? We just did Power Man, and we're back to Howler Mouse.
We're going to do Hawkman now, I guess. That's what I have on my list.
There
Hawkman.
You go.
Yeah.
Man with wing and mace. I cannot say the name. Oh, no, they are taking Venditti off of it. Damn it.
Well,
no, it's Justice League.
Justice League. Go on ahead. Sorry.
Oh, that's cool, man. This kind of parallels Dr. Fate, Gardner Fox creation with an artist. I don't remember who the artist is. 1940, JSA, that whole history. And let's face it, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, they kind of avoided being doing the whole thing where Batman got huge and we could have had a Hawk Cave and all this stuff, and they got by with it. It was Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Rebooted in the 60s, I think, early 60s there, and we ended up having them becoming, police from outer space on Thanagar, in the reboot. We got 2 Hawkmen now. But Hawkman to me is he's been very recognizable throughout the comic books. Even visually, he's always been part of the All-Star Squadron. Same book, same thing. But during Crisis on Infinite Earths, he is one of the characters that survived being totally messed up by DC. It's amazing that character, they just didn't throw him to the side, because of how bad they messed up his history. 2 Hawkmen, one from the Golden Age, Silver Age, and one universe now with one history. And people refused to let that character go. They wanted him fixed. Fan base wise, yeah. Right? Just go up here into the early, I think the early 2000s, and Jeff Johns comes out with this comic book series Hawkman that I have the first 26 issues of, pulled out of the JSA book he was doing, and he fixes Hawkman. It's all about reincarnation. It goes back to the original Hawkman with his Egyptian roots. He made it into the Justice League cartoon with his actual origin. And Jeff John does everything. Everything counted. Every version of Hawkman existed, and he was even other heroes that DC had established from their Golden and Silver Age. A very rich history. And we talked about Hawk World in, I think it was like 88, 89, when everybody was trying to get their Dark Knight Returns great story.
Which, by the way, is one of my favorite Hawkman stories. It's incredible.
Mine is signed by Tim Truman.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that was great, but that was world building. That wasn't really so much about Carter Hall. It was just reestablishing what Thanagar was. It didn't really repair any history. They just gave Hawk World, here's where we're at, we'll go forward. John Ostrander went on that series.
But for also for as much as the old timers like you, myself, and young kids like Brain here enjoy Hawk World, it's not spoken of.
No.
It's not brought up. We bring it up because we remember it, but it's not like a Watchmen or a Dark Knight or.
Well, it's because it's a knockoff of Dark Knight. He got a 3-issue prestige series. He didn't rip off what Frank Miller did, but it was like, let's make all our heroes grim and gritty and do that. You read the Hawk World, man, you feel like you're seeing a bunch of Vietnam vets and Platoon or something in a couple of those scenes. You know what I mean? Beards down to here, taking drugs. And I mean, it was a very dark world, Hill Street Blues meets Platoon almost.
And you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen, according to Howler Mouse, without Hawk World, we wouldn't have gotten Batman v Superman. So there you go.
Thangarian snare spider beast, that's what Kevin Smith wanted to use,
right. Yeah.
But Hawkman, I mean, I go through their history real quick with this, showing how rich their histories are, how tough these characters are to survive all the changes and things behind the scenes that mess them up. And they kept a fan base. There's a spark there, and there's so much there they can grab. I feel like Jeff Johns was like right on the verge of giving us our Conan with wings big time story. In the 80s, he had a 4-issue miniseries that I still have on my shelf with a special. Not a lot of people talk about that, but it's called The Shadow War.
I just found that.
Yeah. I still have the ones I had when I was a kid and stuff. So there's something about Hawkman that's recognizable, and he survived a lot despite really just being in the Justice League. Had his own little anthology series with the Atom back in the 60s. He's always been consistent in every decade in some shape or form. So there's 80 years of stories to pull from yet again. And they could have made, I think we're just waiting on somebody to just take it and make that ultimate Hawkman story.
Yeah. And you know what? I think Venditti was kicking all sorts of butt on it. So, yeah. Let's see. We have Maverick saying he's average. How can you say that to the next in line down? Oh, talking about Nightwing. If he's average, DC wouldn't have made him Batman. Let's see. Paulo Costa, if the editor had added a caption in the first pages of Hawk World saying 10 years ago, 0 hour wouldn't have been necessary. It's a shame Hawk World doesn't get much attention. I agree. I think that should have been his, at least Longbow Hunters, which is why Green Arrow doesn't make this, because that does get talked about. I thought it was in a series, but still Chuck Dixon's Birds of Prey #8 is still an issue. I will recommend talking about Nightwing there. Not saying they're having an argument. The Shadow needs a new run. Nathan Cole says that he's had some hits and misses on Dynamite. Outside of Bat Family, outside of Teen Titans, I never really felt he was given the story, and that talking about Nightwing. So there you go. Let's see. Who do we have up next? Oh, I get the flaming one. Yeah, you might have liked him as Johnny Blaze. You might have liked him as Danny Ketch, but Ghost Rider, Marvel Spotlight, #5, created by Roy Thomas. Great. Okay, we got a visual aid. So there you go. I've got to say something. I've read the first ones. I used to have the Marvel Essentials on this one, and I read it, and I was like, how did this guy become famous? Seriously. I mean, he's got a great visual, mind you, but the stories were not all that great in the beginning anyway. Because what surprised me was how many times he ran away. But in all honesty, he had some crazy stories and some crazy, like the Orb and such like that, some crazy villains. So the 1970s, they were very experimental with their visuals and what they could do, because all of them were basically doing drugs and such. But he's never had that great story. Danny Ketch never had that great story. Even with the rise of the Midnight Suns, never grabbed onto it. Even as, what's his name? Reyes with the car, never had that great story. You don't like the car either, huh?
Ghost Rider, not Ghost Driver.
Yeah, I know, right? Even the cowboy. They're all cool, and it's really cool to look at it. And it's like I said, it's Ghost Rider is one of the most dynamic visually, one of the most dynamic characters. But
part of the reason his series sort of gained some traction, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, because Mike Plug was all over the place okay, back in the early 70s with these horror. But Mike Plugue's arc is one of the main reasons a lot of people check that book out. He wasn't on there long, if I remember it right. I can be wrong. But absolutely, there was a lot of that was really new to have such a book just flat out in it. The rise of horror in the Bronze Age coming up and stuff. I think he's an icon for that, an underrated icon, because while everybody else was trying to do EC Comics all over again and being a little bit like Damien Hill's, the son of Satan. Yeah, going way too far. You got this Carney, and he just makes a deal with the devil to be famous, and then all of a sudden he's got Zarathos. I think it's the demon's name in him. You're just sort of like, wow. I mean, that's just, at the time, that was like very gypsy and very, very jarring, I think.
I'm going to say something that could be blasphemy, especially for someone our age. I actually preferred the Danny Ketch stories than the Johnny Blaze.
Danny Ketch won me over by reading the first issue. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, they did a good job. They didn't bash Johnny Blaze, and eventually they met. He became sort of a little bit of a mentor. I only hung out for I stayed on Johnny Blaze. I stayed on the Ghost Rider Danny Ketch years because of Mark Texeira, the art. Yeah. So I was only there for about 2 years. I still got a bunch of those books and stuff. But, they brought in Johnny Blaze, and it was awesome, when they finally brought him in.
Do you think that maybe one of the reasons, and I agree, I think I like Danny Ketch better than Johnny Blaze, but when the code loosened up and Marvel was able to get into the monster game, they just, they did what Martin Goodman did best, just flooded it. And, and that was like his, the last 2 years there. But I mean, Dracula, Man-Thing, Frankenstein monster, Son of Satan, Werewolf by Night, everything. And maybe there wasn't a whole lot of creativity left for, Ghost Rider. So maybe not as much effort was put into that. And I think Johnny Blaze became a better character with Danny Ketch.
Yes,
I agree with you on that.
But I don't know about the creativity. He had a villain whose head was an eyeball, which I don't understand why he just didn't go.
Drugs, sir. Drugs.
Cocaine was coming into it.
Yeah, right.
That probably came to Mike Frederick one night in an LSD-induced nightmare.
Well, on all accounts, if you read anybody's accounts of that time, they're all saying, "Yeah, we were high off our asses." So,
and the other thing is like, I was being born in the early 70s, but I grew up with Evel Knievel, and there's no doubt in my mind that the Evel Knievel craze may have already been going on. I have the biography of Evel Knievel I've never read yet, but they brought in Evel Knievel and really turned up the evil. You
and I are in the same generation. I think we both had that one toy.
It was my favorite toy. I made ramps with the 10 lunch boxes after I sniffed lighters underneath the sink.
Exactly, yeah. Let's see. Dominic Powell talking about Hawkman, saying, "I like the reveal that Hawkman and his incarnations can exist simultaneously with one another from across time and space." Answering my question as to why Ghost Rider didn't take off or have that great story is because it was written by Roy Thomas. Nightwolf Plays saying, "Here you go. How he became famous? Simple. Flaming Skull. Tings dig that stuff." Let's see. The OG Ghost Rider stories got way better towards the end of the run. The Quentin Carnival was great. Midnight Suns are how I was introduced to Ghost Rider, says Maverick. The car is stupid, says Jim Sorensen. I don't think you're going to get a lot of argument from this particular panel. The first 3-part of the second Ghost Rider would make a great basis for a movie, says DW. I was introduced to Ghost Rider through, whoops, I lost it. There, I went up 1 2 minutes. There we go. Through Danny Ketch, he needs more love. I think Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch could have been interesting mentor. Well, he is. Let's see. The Ghost Driver never had a great story either. Yeah, that's why I brought all 3 up. That's why when I mentioned Ghost Rider, I wanted to mention all of the incarnations. They've done basically 4. Maybe there's one out there I'm forgetting, but you had the Cowboy, then you had Johnny Blaze, Danny Ketch, and now Reyes. None of them has that. And sometimes we're talking and we'll bring up like a Hawk World. that story does deserve to be, but it just isn't. Or, but by all means, if you guys know a story and you can argue with us, go on ahead. What were we trying to say, Alan?
If you don't mind, let me throw out one more thing to kind of talk about the potential of Ghost Rider. Danny Ketch had the Penance Stare. If you go back and look at the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon where Galactus shows up, they're basically doing John Byrne's Galactus story. Ghost Rider shows up and hits Galactus with the Penance Stare and brings him to his knees. Okay, there's potential there for a great story. He's got the power to have one,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Garth Innocent is making fun of Johnny Blaze got old quick, says DW. Danny Ketch's first villains were amazing and the storyline was great, straddling the line between horror and crime.
When Devin Grayson got a hold of Ghost Rider, I'm glad that miniseries was forgotten. I was just like, oh, this is horrible.
There you go. Yeah, we need a great run. Okay, here's a question, and maybe we should be asking this all along, since we know that Gail Simone can't write a Plastic Man, or we've got a great run from Hawkman, from Venditti on Hawkman, but still not that great story. Think about Ghost Rider, and ladies and gentlemen in the chat, by all means, this is to you too. Who would you put? Who's the great writer that could bring in the great writer his story? Who do you think could do it? Because if Grant Morrison, who would be one of my first choices, is just making fun of him, who would be that guy? That's an interesting.
I'm gonna go with like one of the most obvious, but the deal is that he has actually studied the occult, and it'd be Alan Moore, just because he studied the occult. I mean, I know he's Alan Moore, but I mean, I can't think of a writer that really understands the dark side of the magic. You know what I mean? That he could pull in there.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking of it, why had Bernie Wrightson never drawn Ghost Rider? That could have been awesome. Alan Moore, go for it. Let's take that Swamp Thing team and move them over to Ghost Rider for a second. And let's see what they could do.
That almost brought a tear to my eye when you said Bernie Wrightson on Ghost Rider. I'm like, it's meant to be.
I know, right? Except for one problem. Yeah.
That was a sad day. Yeah.
All righty. Do you remember who's up next there, Breen?
I believe it's me with the JSA.
All right. I'm jealous.
Well, you can chime in because Justice Society, goes back to the early 40s. Here is a couple of visual aids up here. Little Adventure Comics, Death of Batman. Let's see, first issue of one of the incarnations.
I used to have that.
And the largely forgotten 8-issue miniseries from 1992. But without going into a whole lot of detail, I mean, the Justice Society goes back to the early 40s when in All-Star Comics, where they would bring the characters that I believe under the national part of the characters. Spectre, Hourman, Dr. Fate, Wonder Woman, Atom. Gosh, if I'd done a little research, I could have rattled off a few more. But so their adventures, they had adventures through the 40s, and then they were brought back in the early 60s to team up with the Justice League of America once a year. So that became an annual event where they would expand on the rosters, and basically all the Golden Age versions of the characters, that a lot of whom existed side by side with them in the Silver Age. And there were some good fun stories in those years. And then, let's say that, I think the series from the early 90s was the first, Justice Society series, that they had their own title. I mean, they did have a run in Adventure Comics, and that is the storyline where they killed Batman. And they did use Justice Society characters in All-Star Squadron throughout the 80s.
And also,
and in the 70s, you had
All-Star Comics. Thank you. I knew I was forgetting something, and that brought back the Justice Society. And it also, I said the first issue that introduced Power Girl and Wildcat. There's another one I forgot, but and that was a real fun series. And boy, did Power Girl have a bad attitude in that. But So and then you get the early 90s, you had that 8-issue miniseries. I gotta be honest, I don't remember much of. And it wasn't really until the early 2000s when David Goyer and Jeff Johns, introduced the Justice Society, the JSA series, which lasts, I think, 87 issues the first time and 60 the second. Just a tremendous series. But again, a ton of great stories, but nothing that people point to and go, that is the definitive Justice Society story.
Well, they're exactly what we're talking about here. And there is definitely at least one more character that's going to come up with a great two, actually, that have a great runs that people look at and go, no, wait. Justice Society has that Jeff Johns run that was amazing. I've got all of the trade paperbacks. Happy to have that. Thank you, Ollie's Bargain Barn, for allowing me to pick those up very cheap. But they're really cool stories. But yeah, you're right. Individual, I could go, oh yeah, that's good. But if nobody knows that, just by osmosis, just by being a comic book fan, about some of the great storylines that we're talking about, or we're saying that these characters deserve. And Justice Society, they've been around since the freaking beginning. We can't get someone to.
They're the first superhero team.
Yeah,
well, no, it's not that they can't, because I said they've had. You couldn't put that team in better hands than they were in with Jeff Johns, and you're probably never going to get stories as good as what he did unless you put a Venditti on it. But some groupings, like I said, I'll give you an example. Through the 2000s, JSA, in my opinion, was much better than Justice League. Justice League was always more popular, always sold better, always talked about more. And sometimes there's just characters where there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the way it is. And it's like, we can appreciate, lifers can appreciate it, but they're just never going to be, you're never going to get that mass acceptance, and never going to, and like I said, as far as like having a great definitive story, we might be able to point to one, but like I said, the casual fan that can point to a Dark Knight or a Watchman won't be able to.
You had the Golden Age, which was James Robinson's first published work in the early 90s. It was a 4-issue prestige format and all that stuff. That was an All-Star Squadron story. From that, he pulled that into his Starman and almost pulled that into continuity. Now, the whole point of this is that Starman led up to the JSA coming back. James Robinson, Dave Goyer, and then Jeff Johns came in there. We didn't really get a great JSA story out of that series. In that JSA series, I would actually put beside Chris Claremont and Burns' X-Men. Seriously. I mean, even though it doesn't have its Dark Phoenix buildup, what it did is that it gave everybody the great moments. Issue 10 had this fantastic Wildcat story. What he did is he showed why each member of the Justice Society was cool. So we have a lot of cool stories and a lot of things building up, and subplots, everything. It's a solid book. But the closest we ever had, so I recommend the series that we're saying they didn't have their ultimate story. The closest thing we got was after Crisis on Infinite Earths, where Roy Thomas wrote that the Justice Society was fighting Ragnarok over and over and over. And then they were just going to leave them there. That's not a great story. That's an ending. That's what they thought.
Yeah. Let's see. We have DW Washburn saying, funny thing about the first two Ghost Rider series is they mirrored each other. One started weak and got strong, and the other one started strong and got weak. Dominic Powell, I like the return of the JSA after Crisis on Infinite Earths in the mid-late 80s and early 90s, and, of course, Jeff Johns' run. Excellent runs, and we're recommending it. Never had that. The JSA is like the Shadow, very good, but it is just too associated with the time of its era. If it isn't Golden Age, it just doesn't seem to work, which I would say, if I wrote Justice League or Justice Society, I would put it back in the 40s. They're modern, they're in the modern age, and I don't think they need to be. Let's hear about some of the origin, some of the original DC Universe stories. 5G, if you're going to be doing this, do that. Tell us some JSA stories back in the 1940s when it should have been done.
No, we got that in an issue of Justice League, about 6 months ago.
Oh, except for now it wouldn't be, would it? Because they're all 60s and 70s. Now the Golden Age wouldn't be in the 40s. they wouldn't be fighting Hitler. They'd be fighting the Viet Cong. Da 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 da. Didn't think about that now, did you, gang? How about the question? Did it see now? There you go. That's another one. The question: did he have a great story?
That's a great question.
That is a
story.
That's why they call
the
it
most
question. Yeah.
The most popular question story that I know of, simply because it's like been reprinted recently and stuff, is question like 16 or 17, where he dreams of meeting Rorschach. You know. But I don't think that's really a great story, because you have to be knowledgeable of comics to get what's going on in that story and why it's cool. I mean, he's a Ditko creation. He deserves, you know, he's been around forever, you know, like what, 50, 55 years now, or coming up on it.
He's kind of got a Spider-Man first appearance. It's it's like the only issue that exists of that particular comic book is the first appearance of the question, then it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Question's got a lot of potential. The Question's best stories aren't in comics. I think he's had a great story in Fearful Symmetry in the Justice League cartoon from the early 2000s. I think that's his great story. It's in a cartoon. It's not in the book.
I forget what it was called, but there was a 3-annual crossover in the late 80s with Batman and Green Arrow.
Yeah.
I have one of them in there.
Yeah, I remember that.
Denny O'Neil.
There was actually a line where he tells Batman, you need to back off. And Batman's like, are you freaking kidding me? And he's like, if you come along, what's the point of me being there? You know, what with Batman being the greatest detective, which I thought, I don't know about that. Because I'd still, if I were Batman, I'd still tell him, you know, keep up. Maybe you'll learn something or something like that. But what you gonna do? And
I don't mean to get too geeky in the comics here and stuff, but I think a great question story would be have him meet Mr. A. The question came first by Ditko, and then he came out with Mr. A, the answer with the A. And I think having those two meet may be the formula somehow to have the great story for the question.
All righty.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to number 5. Our number 5 pick here is my first comic book crush, and who knew? I like women of color. What can I say? Howler Mouse.
Yeah. Well, we had. Oh, you got to be kidding me! This is the first appearance of She-Hulk, and the green screen is. Of course, I get the green one. That's hilarious.
Hold on.
All right,
I've got one. As a matter of fact,
yeah, is that number 60? The last one. Yep.
This is a preview of something that's going to be in an auction soon, ladies and gentlemen. So there you go. This is the one we're going to be talking about. Take it away there, Howler.
Well, She-Hulk popped up, and she's exactly what she was supposed to be in. Stan Lee and Marvel were having some ideas here about, like, for copyright reasons, you know, we have Hulk, we need a She-Hulk. You know, we have a Spider-Man, we need a Spider-Woman. Little did they know DC already had a Spider-Woman in the Legion of Superheroes world, you know. But when she came out, you know, Stan Lee popped on there, did the origin issue. It's exactly what it is. She's just cousins with Bruce Banner, who, even though he knew he had irradiated blood, he went ahead and gave her a blood transfusion because she was dying. And she was the Savage She-Hulk. And that first series is just all over the place. Yet, this one guy really liked the She-Hulk, and his name was John Byrne. He fell in love with her after she had already been in the Avengers and had a fan following to begin with. But when John Byrne got a hold of her, and Joe Jusko did this amazing Muscle Beach poster of her, she just started slowly taking off after Secret Wars, where John Byrne stuck her in the Fantastic Four. And she's front and center. And I swear, in my 12-year-old little 10, 11, 12-year-old mind, it seems like She-Hulk mania was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the whole thing is that she was a popular character. John Byrne fans loved her. People who weren't John Byrne fans loved what he was doing with her, to where when John Byrne came back from working at DC, he'd worked on Superman for so long, he just wanted some B characters and low-level books where he could just play around and do what he did. And we got 8 issues of the sensational She-Hulk, and then he came back a few years later, and now we have 2 or 3 of those books worth $50 a piece because people think she's on the jump rope naked, and
that
she had a volleyball. I have all of those, you know. But she's a fun character. She was a positive character. I've heard what they've done over the last several years. And she went from seriously a BC list character, and thanks to John Byrne and putting her in the Fantastic Four and spending years working on her and just being in love with her, she has the potential to really, again, have like one of those awesome stories that's deserving. And plus, this is the first female we've had on here, you know. And then I think this is one of the few characters where, even though she's always been the big, strong woman in today's atmosphere politically and all that stuff, that was never an issue with her. She was just Jennifer Walters having fun being the She-Hulk. You get what I'm saying? She wasn't preachy. She just was, you know. I
was actually introduced to her through the Avengers, and then I found Savage She-Hulk. And that was, of course, at the time when nobody gave a crap about She-Hulk. So you could pick up the entire run for a donut. It was, and I love the character. And granted, I didn't care for the Savage She-Hulk because that wasn't who was in the Avengers.
It was, well, the book was all over the place. The book was all over the place. It's a mess of a book.
It really is, because it doesn't know if it wants to be it's an original character, if they want her to be the Hulk. Now they just decided you can't be famous if you're not a male character. So they really did they turned her into the Hulk. It's ridiculous. They took the personality right out of her. And
again, there's a character from the 90s Legion of Superheroes that's who they made her look like, whether they know it or not. You know, I'm like, it's already been done.
Monstrous.
It's already been done. Huh?
Yeah.
Monstrous.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think,
I like that character too.
But yeah, as much as you can say, oh, I love the She-Hulk, I love the John Byrne run, or you love her in the Avengers, the most you could come along with is, I do believe the Avengers had a storyline where she went crazy, and then they had to catch her in a small town. That's the closest she came. Now, Paolo is, of course, bringing up graphic novel number 18.
The Living Monolith. Oh, but no, wait, sorry.
No. That's her. That's the Sensational She-Hulk.
It's 11:16 at night. Just ignore me. You know.
No worries. But that's one of the things that fans always point to. But outside of the fans, nobody knows. I don't think a lot of people realize that there were such a thing as Marvel graphic novels anymore. But it's a great story, sure, but it's not a great story. It's not that one that elevated that people could go boom. An entire run, however. If they could put a title to those first 8 issues of John Byrne, She-Hulk may just be that. She may be one good title away from having that trade paperback reprinted, and boom, all of a sudden it's She-Hulk jumps rope or something like that, and everybody loves it.
I mean, just to kind of put a cap on what I have to say, you know, on it, is that the thing about She-Hulk is that she's got the personality of, I mean, a living, breathing character is what she feels like, because she's got the personality of being very likable to people. You know, she's got a sense of humor. She can be a little tongue in cheek. She can take a dirty joke every now and then. She's very fun. And then she's a lawyer on the side. You know, her intelligence comes through. She's the whole point is she's a well-rounded character that, you know, a mainstream audience probably would latch onto. I mean, if they can watch Ally McBeal, then you got, you know, you can handle She-Hulk, you know.
Except for now we've got to say she was a well-rounded character. She was all of this. Now she's the Hulk. And you speak of the lawyer thing, which makes me have to bring up another run, and that's the Dan Abnett run. Not the Dan Abnett run, the Dan Slott run. And
to me, that never happened. That never happened.
I disagree with you completely. I love that run. I really do. The whole lawyer thing, I love them using comic books as files to find things out. Defending the guy who wants to sue a company that made him into a superhero because he didn't want powers. I love that whole storyline.
I felt like I was reading an Adult Swim cartoon with Harvey Birdman sometimes. You know what I mean? It's a matter of taste, not anything to do with
that's slow. Fine. No, I love that. I love that run. I thought that was a great successor to the John Byrne run.
And then the Peter David run was outstanding, but you were talking about certain things that you're never going to see again. like I said, for good or ill, there's no way in hell you'll ever see Iceman be straight. That's they can change anything at this point except for that. What you'll also never see is a pretty feminine, like the She-Hulk that we're talking about. That ain't coming back. It might in live action, but in the comics, it's never going to happen.
That's really sad. That is sad that you said that. Let me get some comments here. Guys, just to let you know, we do accept super chats. So anywho, save it for the auction, man. Let's see. What do we have here? The problem with setting JSA in the 40s is because certain topics that were relevant in the era would be considered problematic. I could see that. We need a terrific version of the Question, the Vigilante, and the Shining Knight, which is actually Howler Mouse might bring up. If we ever do this again, might bring up the Vigilante there. It was on a list we were talking about earlier. So let's see. She-Hulk. Okay, you brought. We did mention that. I bought that #1 issue off the Spinner Rack. Talking about She-Hulk. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. weren't very pleased, she was the first to scrag a helicarrier, says Paolo. That is my favorite Shulky story, Paolo. Sadly, the consequences of the cockroaches attack didn't stick with her. Let's see. Look at this lineup. Some real buttes, says Chad. Thank you. She was witty and funny, which is weird for a... Oh, come on. Avengers was the first place I was introduced to her, but Byrne's run made her one of my favorite characters. I absolutely hate what they've done to her. Don't we all? Don't we freaking all? Yeah. But Howler, you mentioned that she was the first girl that we've talked about. She will not be the last. We actually have 2 more on this list, so let me move on to the next one. And I've got to tell you, these days, this character's being written better, or at least they was when she had her series. Mark Andreyko was doing a hell of a lot better with Supergirl than Brian Michael Bendis is doing with Superman. We're talking about Supergirl. She's been around for freaking ever and a day. Yes, I want that book, by the way. That's my favorite look on Supergirl. I've been looking at it, because I want to get one of those. I want to get one of those covers that Art Shimmer's doing, and that's the one I want to get. I just love that outfit on her, the 1970s. And Draco's been writing some great stuff. Peter David had a great run in the 90s. She's got some really strong runs and everything, but once again, where's her great story? Would you even call it? Okay, you disagree.
I have one, but I mean, I can wait my turn. It's okay. It's Into the Silent Night, Crisis on Infinite Earths #7, where she sacrifices herself. It's the only Supergirl story I ever thought had real substance.
But is that it? Because you nailed it. Is that a Supergirl story, considering it's also a DCU story? Would that fall under the same umbrella as Nightwing being in the Teen Titans? It's a great Supergirl moment.
Yeah,
and that's something. Once again, hey, you know what? I always say the comment section is smarter than us. What do you guys think? Does that Crisis story? Could that Crisis story?
I think we just had a parallel. I think you turned me around with those words there. Like what all she did was steal the spotlight from a bunch of heroes in that book.
Yeah, because till that moment, she was hanging back with Firestorm and all the others, and then Superman got in trouble, and she was the first one that made it there to help him out. Great storyline, and once again, that 70s book is a lot of fun. Her adventure comic stories, they were good. The Peter David run when she was Protoplasm, you remember that particular miniseries? In the 90s, but
Matrix. She was Matrix. Yeah.
But
was in the Peter David run, the very last storyline where they bring back a version of Kara Sorel, arrives in the spaceship when it turns out to be some kind of like time anomaly, and they have to send her back to wherever it was, and they put her in the rocket, and she regains consciousness long enough to just like the real sad face and say, why can't I stay? And then Yeah, and
I had that run you're talking about, and what amazed me is that one of the issues has a John Romita Sr. cover on it of him drawing Supergirl holding the American flag.
that's the last issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ed Bennis was doing the art for that storyline. I think he's the most underrated artist maybe ever. But that whole story arc was just, I mean, it was sad and beautiful, and they did it because they'd canceled the book.
Right.
But yeah, I said that's a, you know, I loved everything about Peter David's run. But again, you know, even the one I just touted, when you think of great Supergirl runs, no one can think of any.
Yeah.
See, I love Supergirl so much. I have the VHS of her movie from the 80s and the DVD. You know, I mean,
yeah,
I have her trading card set.
Wow.
You know,
I do like the movie, by the way. I remember seeing it as a kid and I thought it was awesome. And then of course you watch it as an adult and like, oh no, I still watch it though. It's campy fun. It's a bad movie. It doesn't make one lick of sense, but it's a can't.
And anytime Supergirl comes up over the years of my videos and stuff in the 80s and in the 90s, and it seems like every couple of years, I meet people who only collect Supergirl comics, adventure comics, anything she was in. They don't collect any other kind of comics. It blows my mind when I meet these people.
God, they like the Supergirl version of Bronies or what?
Well, I'm not gonna. There's another character we could talk about, and that's why I put down 10 great and not top 10, so we could always revisit certain topics. But there's another very Supergirl-esque famous character that I know a lot of people collect her comics to, that has not had that. That has not had that excellent story or anything like that. That perhaps we'll be talking about later at another live stream. But so there you go. We do. Oh, by the way, Undead Quinn, Marika took Maki's run on She-Hulk, started the car crash. I do dig that. So we do have one more female character to talk about, Eric. Let's bring her up, because this is a contentious one. This character these days pisses people off, so that's why we gave it to Eric, so you can hate him.
I'm eminently hateable. So
there you go.
All right, we're Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel, Carl Manvers,
Carol Danvers. Yeah, let's just call it by her real name, Carl Manvers.
So, you know, what most people may or may not know is her first appearance goes back to Marvel Superheroes 13, which was the second of 2 issues featuring the Captain Marvel character, and she was a NASA employee, and she became embroiled in Marvel's life, who had taken the identity of Walter Lawson. So and she made some appearances in the Captain Marvel comic, and she was impersonated by a Skrull in the early issues of the Kree-Skrull War, and then she has kind of faded to Bolivia until this. They reintroduced her this time as a superheroine in Ms. Marvel. Only the twist was Carol Danvers didn't know she was Ms. Marvel, so she would black out, and the first couple issues they tried to strike up a friendship between she and Mary Jane Watson, but they kind of swept that under the rug pretty quickly. And so this so the first 8 to 10 issues, she didn't know who she was, and then it kind of unfolded slowly, where she learned of her how she came to possess Kree abilities and whatnot. And this series lasted 23 issues. There was a 24th issue that was in the can that was ended up being reprinted years later, and also in her Epic collections. But and she as her popularity to like help bolster her popularity, they used her in a couple of Marvel team ups, which I've talked about in previous live stream. They introduced her to they brought her into the Avengers, where she was involved in one of the most god-awful anniversary issues that have ever been published.
You're talking about 200? Yeah.
And you say that I'm there for you. Look at that.
Breen has this uncanny ability, by the way. I'll bring up a comic issue and he'll just reach over it. It's like he's got this black hole. He just reaches in and grabs whatever comic.
It's even better when it's X-Men.
It just so happens that I went shopping for some collections and I found this today. So it was right next to him. By the way, it is also autographed and this will be auctioned.
They sort of did to Donna Troy in the Teen Titans.
Yeah.
What they did to Carol Danvers there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Kevin Vu, for the super chat saying England Teen Comics has a great run, but not that iconic story. Trollface. I don't know what Trollface is, but yes, that is true.
And then, but right after that, I mean, they also used her in one of the best Avengers, not anniversary, but annual, the Avengers Annual 10, where we found out that Rogue had, almost killed her and taken, her powers. And that storyline had repercussions, literally for decades before I would say that those repercussions lasted until they reimagined her as Captain Marvel. But in between, there was a great 50-issue series that Brian Reed wrote the majority of, if not all of. But I said that, that went through Civil War, Secret Invasion, Dark Reign, where actually, who was it? Moonstone became Ms. Marvel. And yes, I mean, and great, great run, but no one particular storyline you can point to.
Yeah, everybody. I've never met anyone who's read the 2000 run. That I guess it was like what 60, 65 issues. I've never read. Okay, I've never heard anybody who's read that series say a bad thing about it. It was a lot of fun.
And then for whatever reason, they decided that they needed her to become, I don't know, more serious, more when they reimagined her as Captain Marvel. I'm sorry, you can say whatever you want. I know we're supposed to love her, but there isn't even a good story in there. I've heard people say that the early issues were okay, but I mean they just with each version they become like different, like extra pages on a search engine. By the time you get to like the ninth reimagining, there's nothing left.
Yeah, they've destroyed that character.
So that's another character that we can talk about the version we love. That's never coming back either.
Yeah.
So
there's a.
Oh,
go ahead. I'm sorry. I feel bad. I feel bad chiming in on every character. I need to just keep my mouth.
No, that's why you're here, dude. Seriously.
But
Venkman does it all the time. So
yeah, but you know what you're talking about.
There's a lot of things that people did for the season collector. I don't know how people do it. But Eric, did you mention anything about the binary stuff they did with her in X-Men?
No, I did not.
Oh no, it's cool. But one of the things they did is like when it comes to Marvel, what they've done with Peter Parker, and what they've done with Miss Marvel, they just abuse their characters. If you look at the long history, first she's cast in the shadow of Captain Marvel just because she's a little bit Kree. All these Kree know each other. Okay. And then they turn around and they strip of her powers with Rogue for whatever reason. Okay, and then she gets replaced by another Captain Marvel who has powers nothing like her. Then they turn around and she becomes binary, where it's her first real identity to me. That's completely hers. And I think if there was going to be a great Carol Danvers story, it would have been with that binary character, but I don't remember what happened.
Well, now they've just added non to that.
Right. So then we come in there and
hold on. He won the internet tonight right there. There you go. Okay, that was.
I heard it and it sunk in, and I'm like, I have to do like a slow cackle to a big laugh. That was awesome. But the next time I saw Carol Danvers pop up was in Kurt Busiek's and George Perez's Avengers run. What they do, she goes by the name of the plane. I can't remember what she was called, but off the top of my head,
Warbird.
Thank you. But what they did is all of a sudden she's an alcoholic, and of course she's hanging out with Iron Man because Tony was an alcoholic. Now she's got a freaking sponsor. They did it to her again. She had her own identity, had her own thing. What they do, they put her in the shadow of a drunk with her.
Yeah, well, she tried to kill him too, and apparently she later developed a taste for it because, as I understand, she kills him more than they kill Kenny on South Park now.
But I mean, it's just, to me, I don't know who Carol Danvers is, and I don't care that Marvel. I don't want to bash them, but how many number one? She just doesn't work. She doesn't work. They keep rebooting. You know, whatever. Number one. Somebody actually told me there was 14 number ones over the last couple of years. You know, if you added them all up.
8.
You remember?
If you're talking series, if you're talking like, because I know there's like a one shot or so, but yeah, there's like 7 or 8 different series that they started.
Yeah, you remember 2 characters that I'd forgotten just running through that, and all of those characters, whether it's Warbird, Binary, Ms. Marvel, they're all better than what they're doing now. But in Marvel's eyes, she is the perfect character because she is the perfect character for the audience they want, and nobody on this panel is in that audience.
Well, I don't know. If they, and this may be a subject for a different time or a different video, but I don't think they know what audience they want. I know they've got an idea, but I don't think they actually know. I don't think they actually know how to get them. They have oh, well, this must be. It's kind of like reading the 1960s Teen Titans, where they're trying to appeal to the teenagers, and it's so obviously written by a 50-year-old man. Hey, fellow kids, that's what it comes off as. Yeah, Ms. Marvel, absolutely, you're absolutely right, Howler. She has been abused from beginning to end here, and I never actually thought about it, but until I'm going to give it to him in that 2000 run. Until then, and with Binary, that was her own character. Otherwise, they've stripped her and they've put her, made her into something else. And they want her to be, or they wanted her to be, the central character of the Marvel Universe until Black Panther made $1 billion at the box office.
I just realized what the great Carol Danvers story could be is her like going through all her identities in her head, saying, "I'm going to be me, damn it, leave me alone," and she blows up Marvel.
Well, there you go. We need Warren Ellis to do that same sort of split personality thing he did on Moon Knight for Captain Marvel.
Remember how good she was how powerful she was as a character in the Mighty Avengers. So I mean, she did it while looking, hot. And but apparently I said at some point the powers that be at Marvel just do not believe that sexy and strong can go together.
Yeah, it's amazing how they believe that a woman needs to act like a man to be interesting, but that's getting back into the identity politics thing. So let's move on here. And you know what, my the viewers here, they're going to be surprised I gave you this character, Howler. So do you remember which one's next? Because I don't know if you guys were writing him down when I called him off. So
does he wear an orange shirt?
He does, sir. And
does he wear green Speedos or green tights? Greens.
Yes, sir.
Craig Ferguson plays him.
But it's actually cool that I got Aquaman for this because I was the guy that was an Aquaman fan simply because he was on Super Friends. He was always there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was what he was. I knew what people thought of him. I knew what other comic people would say about him. But if there was a miniseries, I was there. I have some of the Jim Aparo stuff that from the late 60s, early 70s. Aquaman's had a lot of great stories that people never gave a chance or don't know about.
Time and Tide, my friend.
Time and Tide, yeah. I mean, what's funny is I've got all that. Anything that came out from like when he got the blue suit in that miniseries.
I hated that blue suit. Good show, but a horrible costume.
I was cool about the suit. I was like, get rid of that. I liked what Keith Giffen did with him, where they tried to explain what the suit was and everything like that. It was a prisoner suit. There was a bunch of miniseries, and Peter David came upon him. Got a hold of him. I had the Atlantis Chronicles leading up to Time and Tide and everything, right? Rich history, pulling what was there. Great character. It goes back to the golden age again, to the 40s.
Yep.
Always compared to Namor, who came first and everything like that. I think it's apples and oranges with all that. But again, he's survived. He's been recognizable. But I concede that if you had told me even 5 years ago that his movie would make $1 billion, I just would be the #1 movie. It just blows me away,
And I love that movie.
Yeah, and of course Jeff Johns was the one who showed him love. Peter David showed him a lot of love. They did a lot of things. Amazingly, one of my favorite, and he still hasn't had that great story. A lot of great history, a lot of great moments, things they were doing with Aquaman when they finally started taking him serious. And until he is taken serious, I don't think he'll have that great story. He's a king. I don't know if it's in continuity now, but his son was killed by Black Manta. Black Manta has had his moments and great stories more than Aquaman has. With the rise of that.
Recently, Mira just gave birth, so they may be bringing that back. We'll see. I'm very interested to see if they even have the balls to do that. Yeah. I don't know. I just interrupted. So if you have more to say, I'll
go on and on, because when it comes to Aquaman, I can bounce back and forth. I just love the character in the series. But like I said, it goes back to being a kid. He was there on Super Friends.
Once again, yeah, I discovered him on the Super Friends as well, and I never actually thought he was lame. I didn't see that until later. Everybody's like, wait, you're talking about Aquaman when he's about being lame? Because he was always in the Justice League, and he had some great miniseries going up. You do have the Peter David, you do have the Atlantis Chronicles. Even when he lost his hand, was kind of cool. I liked all of those, and when I heard, well, he wasn't cool until Jeff Johns was like, no, there's many stories of him being cool.
The only time he was lame is when he was in Justice League Detroit, because Gary Conway didn't know what to do with him. He was trying to turn him into a grim, gritty Punisher type or something. I don't know what he was doing. That made no sense.
In his first appearance, he's kicking Nazi ass all over the place. So
I'll out old all of you guys and say Steve Skeets did a great run in the original series.
That's the series he did with Jim Epro I was talking about. Yeah. There was a great story. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when you said that, I was thinking of the David Michelini or Michelini, how you pronounce that ran through Adventure Comics that led into his revival of that series. But yeah, so I mean, because Joe Paro was. Is it Aparo? Is that how you pronounce that? I've never known for sure.
I've always said Aparo. I mean, but I learned his name through reading his name. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, and they just DC did a hardcover trade of like 8 of those issues. It was like I can't remember. If it was
it the Death of Mira?
Yeah, and there's 8 more that that lead up to issue 56 that I thought, if for no other reason, with the success of the movie, that they would release the second 8 issues, because that would complete the Skeets run.
It's being brought up, so I have to bring it up. It's being brought up by Kevin Vu, and this is something that on my channel I had touted so many times, and I pat myself on the back. I normally don't, but I sing the praises of Dan Abnett's run on Aquaman Rebirth so much that people were, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. You got to check this out. Got to check this out. Got to check and then this is why I say Man with Wings and Mace rather than Hawkman, because I touted that so much they gave it to Kelly Sue DeConnick. And I did the same thing to Super Sons until they gave it to Bendis. So I'm not allowed to say good books by their names. But yeah, the Abnett run was incredible as well. The funny thing is to the persons in the know who've been reading Aquaman, he's been cool for decades. Mm-hmm. It's all the other people that don't realize that.
See, and I'm with Eric Breen, the Steve Skeet stuff from the early 70s, we'll say, that he's talking about, underrated books that nobody knows about. I recommend issue 49 through 51. It even has Neil Adams backups of Deadman in it and stuff. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go. That's why he ended up being number 3. So let me get some comments here. Paulo Costa left. I hope you stay safe, and good night to you, sir. Let's see. What I remember from Super Friends, Aquaman, says Maranya on his animated series was Aqualad always hitting his head on the same rock. Almost
the filmation years.
Yeah,
the filmation years. Yeah,
that's on the DC Universe app, by the way. If y'all want to check that out, it is definitely silly fun. And yep, Kevin Vu, of course, bringing up Aquaman Rebirth is a great run. It was a comic of the year a couple of years ago. Yes, absolutely. It was. It won a Spirit Award, the greatest comic book award show of all time. Thank you very much, because it's voted by you and on this show, on this YouTube channel. So, all righty, let's move on to number 2, our number 2 choice. And I've got to be honest with you. I don't know much about this character, so I'm going to need a lot of help from you guys. But he is the second most famous character on this list, and that's Black Panther. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, obviously created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, and let's say it that way this time. But he's got a great run, and I remember reading some of it, but by Christopher Priest. But once again, he's missing that defining story. He's missing and of all the characters on this list that I'm looking at, Black Panther is probably the easiest to write a Dark Knight style story for. I'm amazed that he doesn't have the iconic story that everybody points to and goes, that's one of the great stories you need to read before you die.
Eric, you want to go first, or I mean,
I was just going to say that the Don McGregor run, in Jungle Action, is very well thought of again, but not. But it's also, it's very well thought of by old timers like us, but it's largely fallen down the memory hole for everybody else.
Yeah.
And there was a 4-issue Prestige Panther, series that, I mean, even I've forgotten about, but if I remember correctly, was considered, pretty, heady stuff. And there was the 80s. Late 80s, I think. Yeah. There was the Kirby run, which, in all honesty, Jack didn't bring his talent back to Marvel. I mean, he really did.
He left.
Are you disagreeing or agreeing on that, Alex?
I only have one issue that I can even try to defend Kirby on that run. I just it was I was just on automatic. When somebody talks about Kirby, I'm like, wait a damn minute, but no, you're right.
Yeah, you got a point.
Now I will say this. I loved the covers he did when he came back, because between he and Gil Kane, they made Marvel Comics. They did probably 99% of the covers for an entire year, and that was fun. Looking back, at all those. But as far as if you did like the Captain America stories, just I don't mean to pick on him, but
damn, I know. Kick the man when he's down. He didn't get his royalties. He's dead, and now you're like, Kirby, yeah, everybody else loves you, not me. Oh, hey, damn, Breen. What's up?
The thing that I remember from the Kirby run in there, one of my favorite particular issues that he did is that I think it was the Black Panther ended up walking around these very weird people. And you're sitting there like, what is going on? I think he got knocked out or something, and you kind of wake up with him. And then you start realizing is he dreaming of Star Wars? And it turns out that he had wandered onto the set of what would be a Star Wars movie. And Kirby had messed with your head, like with the Black Panther, you coming out of this, slumber, and you're like, I'm on an alien world. And it was a movie set. I thought well done on that. But the whole point of it is that when it comes to the Black Panther, I felt like the way I interpreted it is that you got to go back to characters like the Phantom and maybe just a touch of Tarzan. People from the Serengeti and the jungles and stuff, those pulp characters and stuff. It doesn't matter that he was one of the first, if not the first black superhero. It's that he had some pulp roots there, And to me, he's a pulp character. If you want to write the great story of Black Panther, don't put him in Hell's Kitchen and let him replace Daredevil. Go back to those pulp roots that I interpreted. You know what I mean? With that character. Go ahead.
For a king of an African country, he does not spend a lot of time in Africa.
There you go. Go back to those pulp roots. He used to just pop up every now and then in Captain America, every now and the Avengers. And then when he did pop up and stay for an extended time, they acknowledged why he was staying away from his duties for so long. You know what I mean? To the point where I think they thought he was spying on him or something. I don't remember.
No, they did. They retconned that in at one point.
Yeah. So there's a lot of great things there for the Black Panther thing. You know, don't get into the. I'm gonna go ahead and say, don't get into the identity politics. Don't just try to be cute and have him marry another character because she's black. That makes no sense. Like Storm, you know, and stuff like that. Make him what he was, a king. You know, pulp roots in the jungle, things going on out there. I mean, there's a lot of great things they can do, but the trick is don't get too political with them, because I've seen people do that. When I've seen these stories, they don't work. It's more like you can look at his comic book stuff over the years, and you can point out more of what didn't work. They don't get what Kirby was doing. It's like somebody trying to write Commandy, in my opinion. Kirby was the guy meant to handle that character. You know what I mean?
Yep. But once again, like I said, I read some of Priest's run, but I was never a big Black Panther fan. I thought he looked all right. You know, it's great design. It's very simple and it works, but he was never a character that really appealed to me very much. It's just he was a C-list character. I mean, he was a C-list character. He's a one-note character to me as well. Okay, because he's and I think. For my interpretation, when I'm reading the character, I think Bozeman or whatever is Bozeman, the dude who plays him, is absolutely nailing it, because he's always staring into the mid distance and talking like this. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I read every line of the Black Panther, because he was always like more noble and above everybody else. And I don't know. But yeah, he does not have that. He's got a great run that everybody remembers with Christopher Priest, but he doesn't have that great story. And I think that and you're right, maybe turning him into a Phantom, kind of character, that would be awesome. But there you go. And I'm not seeing anybody arguing. However, we are hearing that Devil Dinosaur was an awesome character. So
I didn't read it.
I have them all. I enjoyed it. I love that caveman stuff. 2001, the series. He had cavemen in there also. I mean, it's just, I thought Kirby had a lot of stuff that was weird at the time, but now I consider it ahead of its time. And that's I'm shutting up. I'm going to go on a Kirby thing,
We encourage it. We're very much about, if you put an opinion out there, you better be able to back it up. So when I read 2001 as a kid, I was like, what the hell is this? And now I read it in my 20s. When I read it in my 20s and stuff, I was like, oh, this is genius. I get it now. Yeah. All righty. Which leads us to our number one most famous character without a great story. And we're giving it to you, Breen.
And thanks for that.
There you go. I mean, it's fantastic. Plus, I hate this character. I hate him with a freaking passion.
Remind me to ask you a bunch of sports ball questions next chance I get.
Oh, really? So you bring them up, and we'll all talk about it as much as we can.
Okay. And I don't own an issue of a Deadpool comic to use as a.
I know, right?
Prop. I mean, I've got a trade paperback, but don't feel like going and getting it. But now I will say.
Yes, it's Marvel's version of the ambush bug. Thank you.
Now, if I remember correctly, he made his first appearance in New Mutants '98, and eventually, he ended up in his own series. I think Fabian Nicieza wrote in the mid to late '90s, which actually is my favorite, version of the character, because that was before he became everybody's blank slate. Everybody that thought they had a funny idea, turned it into a Deadpool story. So it's like kind of like the comic relief version of Batman
before he became Ambush Bug.
Absolutely. I mean, he was in love with Teresa Cassidy, and it was pretty much unrequited. And it's just it attempted to have a continuing story, and ever since then, there have been stories you can point to, and I said, you auctioned a couple of them off the other night of a Vic Gischler 12-part story where he was running around with the zombie severed head Deadpool. That was legitimately funny. But most of the stories I said, I'm not the target audience for Deadpool. Clearly, I'm probably 20 something years older than the people that they're aiming that at. But I said, I I'm kind of with you. I'm just not a fan of the character, and I'm going to shut up now and let somebody else jump in.
I haven't been a fan of the character in a long time, and that's because if you try to do funny and you fail, it's horrible. It is horrible. And to me, Deadpool a lot of times is exactly that. It's a failure at being funny. Occasionally, you'll get an issue here, you'll get an issue there that kind of nails it. And you're like, yeah, that wasn't bad. That wasn't. They did one where it was Daredevil 007 or something where he was. I thought that one was okay, but he doesn't have that defining story that everybody looks to and goes, that's the great one. And that's why he made this list. I'm a little bit different in the fact that I can't point to a lot of runs that I particularly cared for. And I think one of the big problems is because exactly what I said. It's sad watching a comedy with no laughs. And that's what I get out of Deadpool. Plus, in all honesty, I like Ambush Bug better. He did it first.
Well, a character has to have the ability to be serious at some point to have that great run. Usually, I mean, She-Hulk being maybe the closest thing to an exception with their first 8 issues of the Byrne series, but and they said so. There's no serious runs out there for the character, and a bunch of, like you said, failed comedic attempts.
Yeah, and you know what else? As much as I don't like the character because of what I read on the page, I hate the character for what I see in comic conventions. I'm sorry, just because you put on the freaking outfit doesn't mean you're funny. Shut up, leave me alone, walk away. I swear to gosh, every time I look to my children, sometimes I go, I'm about to get arrested. If that boy does not walk away, I am about to get arrested, kids.
Yeah, I have blinders on when I see anybody Deadpool and cosplaying Deadpool, man. My thing is like, before I even start here, is like, I'm the kind of guy that, like, if you like Deadpool, that's cool. I don't hate the character, but back in the day, my brother would come down on the weekends. I would take him over to get some comic books. He was on top of the Rob Liefeld thing. He's the one that called, 4 years younger than me, read comic books pretty much because I did. And he's the one that's got the crystal ball, what's going to be hot. He's the one that was on the cable. He's the one that knew Deadpool. We both had the first appearance of Deadpool when it came off the stands, Didn't even think anything of it. When I looked at him, I saw a combination of Spider-Man, Deathstroke, but I still called him the Terminator back then, and just a little bit of the Punisher there, right? And I thought this was just an amalgamation of all kinds of stuff. My brother was like right on it. As the years went by, and that New Mutants number 98 is a horrible written book. Seriously, I mean, that's what gets me about his first appearance. People are paying a lot of money for a horribly written book. Yeah, I mean, seriously, that makes no sense to me. As the 90s progressed, and I saw the miniseries. And then by the time we got to the Joe Kelly series, he had rabid fans within a year of that. And I just did not get it, So I'm kind of with Eric on this. I'm not the audience. I remember that character from his first appearance from X-Force number 2, and that's about it, So to see him grow and become something, Joe Kelly, Ed McGuinness got on him, and he's got this huge fan base. That's great. Comics need that. They need those happy accidents. He is Wolverine. He is Punisher. He is Deadpool. These guys who showed up, they were just like the flavor of the month for whatever that story needed in that 1 month, and nobody knew those characters were going to become so big later on. It happened organically, and I think he's the last character we had like that. And comics need it, whether you like them or not. You know what I mean? I don't like them, but
I would say that we had one more character at least, because it popped right immediately into mind when you said that in 2 words: Harley and Quinn.
She came before that. Oh, yeah, you're right. Her popularity grew before that. So I get that one. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Tina's always right, sir.
Especially when he's the host.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
No,
I will mute your.
One thing I will say about Deadpool, and this just came to me. I said, Deadpool is probably the only comic book character that I like the live action version better than the comic book character.
I'm the exact same way. I would pull my fiance out of bed to have her say I said the exact same thing. We watched it. Deadpool is those two movies are
no. Okay, I want to see that. I want to see this argument. This will make for good TV, please, by all means.
yeah. She loves the movies. We got the digital codes and all that stuff. She loves those, Jurassic Park and What We Do in Shadows. So that's like life here. You know,
What We Do in Shadows is brilliant. I love that.
Yeah,
that movie.
we've never seen Gail or the future Mrs. Howler, so they're like a couple of Veras from Cheers.
Exactly, and that's the way it's going to be because Gail is absolutely intent on not showing up on camera, except for she's on damn near every go out to the park video and on my tourist channel. Nightwolf is saying that the Deadpool Cable was a good run. Okay,
I actually agreed with him on that in print. It was.
Yep. And Maranya saying if comedy has to have a laugh track to tell the audience when to laugh, it's not good comedy, and that's what Deadpool feels like, a comic book that needs a laugh.
So if it were on a network, it'd be CBS.
There you go. I don't like the DP stories where they try to do it serious, but he is running around fourth wall breaking, and his other deals do it one way or the other. That's the thing. They got to find a balance because you have to have the emotional weight in order to really become invested. And yes, the green screen ambush bug will always be a little bit better. There you go. If you guys haven't checked out Ambush Bug, by all means, I would recommend it because they took it to levels that Deadpool has never seen. Right up to the point of making a character out of the DC symbol.
Joni DC.
Yeah. So it really is a lot of fun. Let's see, as someone who was the audience, I liked his runs, but never had that oomph story. And that's what we're here talking about. These are great characters, except for Deadpool, who really do deserve the attention. They deserve that great story. In all honesty, I agree with you both. The movie is so much more fun, in my opinion, than the comics. And maybe that's what it needs. The voice, the dialogue, the timing, and everything is made perfect in the film, when in comics it just isn't.
Well, we were talking about oh god.
No, I'm just thinking there's no stakes with Deadpool. He's got that super healing factor.
Yeah.
And then he's breaking the fourth wall. There's no real stakes. The movie brought stakes on. It's what he would lose besides himself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's where they were smart. I think that's why I like the movie more than the comics.
That's a topic that I think is waiting for a video to be made or a live stream to be made about it. And that is how, and definitely when we were kids, all of us, as a matter of fact, in this case, Breen has a few years on us there, Howler, about the fact that back when we got into comic books, there were stakes, that people had limitations. Now it seems it's almost back to the golden age where the amazement isn't the stories that can be told around the characters. The amazement is just that the characters are there. That was cool in the golden age because, you never saw the story of the man lifting the car and throwing it into a rock or at a building. If you're Captain Marvel, it was like, forget this. Don't worry about hurting people. I'm going to throw this car into the building. But they didn't see the kind of stuff we've seen already. So you need to do something with it. And it looks like we've kind of gone and did a 360 here, where we're right back to people are going, hey, look at this amazing thing that Captain Marvel could never do before, but she's doing it now.
Well, I think one of the things, the problems I see as it pertains to Deadpool or just characters in comics in general now is, and this might be kind of like what you're saying, is there doesn't seem to be any hurry to grow and change any characters anymore, because whether it's to keep them like the movie or the television series versions where there's only so much time to develop that they don't want to confuse people, so it's like the characters are almost like they're like with Spider-Man. Are they going to ever put him back with Mary Jane? Probably not, because he's 16 in the live action universe. So they're not going to make the character 16 necessarily, but it's just kind of like, endless adventure. It's almost like they become, daily comic strips where, the high and lowest from 1960 is the same one there is today. And I think that's, becoming a problem as far as like, and it definitely seems to be more prevalent at Marvel. And as far as like Deadpool not being any good almost ever, think about like the series Nightwolf was referencing. That was at a time when Marvel had a hell of a stable of writers. Yeah, they don't have that anymore. I mean, I said, Jerry Dugan is not going to write a Deadpool that's going to be, full of good plots and laughs.
That's back when they had tons of money to throw at everything, and they were let's see, Nightwolf. I do feel Deadpool is more annoying now than he's ever been. Maranya's putting her 2 cents, saying Hawkeye deserves a good story. DW is agreeing. Let's see. He's had a great miniseries. I like that one in the 1980s.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah. How about Spider-Woman? Still hasn't. And Hawkeye and Mockingbird. And let's see. 70 Spider-Woman is great, but I do like the West Coast Avengers version as well. The one with the black outfit, I'm sure. And just another character that I got today that right there that has never. Yeah. Oh, I am shilling the auction left and right. This is the oh my gosh, it's my wife's birthday auction. I need to sell some things coming up. So there you go, gang.
Or if the auction doesn't go as well as here, honey, have a Black Lightning number. Happy birthday.
First appearance of Black Lightning, honey. You're gonna love this. Happy birthday. It'd be like the bowling ball Homer tried to give Marge. Well, if you don't want it, I'll take it. Sure. There you go, gang. Thanks for for also everybody in the comments. Thanks for your suggestions as well. The reason why I call this 10 great characters that never had a great story is so if you like this one, let us know in the comments as well. Hit like if you haven't done it already here. And if you like this, we could always do this again. We can come up with another 10 and talk about it. If you have a subject that you would like us to jump into as well, at Englandteen on Twitter, right here in the comment section, let us know what top 10 subject you would like to hear us talk about. And if you like Howler Mouse on here, I do, put the Begs on his channel too. Yeah, I'm sending my troop over to your house to bug you to come back sometime, bud. I got balls in the gall to do that.
Hey, just a heads up. In 9 years or whatever, I got 10 good videos. We'll just put it that way.
That's sometimes the way. Have you ever made a video where you're like, I'm gonna post this, but oh goodness, here you go.
Well, my problem is I don't watch myself. Like I might have it on in the background, and I think it's a good video if I forget it's me, and I'm listening. But I've gone through there and I've taken down a few things. Like I really need to start watching this stuff before I put it on.
I made that mistake. There was a I made that mistake because I just don't. I understand now when I hear actors saying, no, I don't like watching my own movies. I'm like, well, if you're not watching them, I totally get that. I totally get that now. But I had too many problems. Like I'll leave stuff in that I shouldn't have. Like I forgot to edit out a mistake. So I'll be like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Just gonna, oh, fuck it. And then I left that in. Whoops.
Yeah, and I'll throw this out there just because it kills me and some people remember it. But back in 2013 or 14, me and a guy named Constant Bromstar on his channel had a show called Finally Designed. Yeah. It was some of the best stuff I ever did with him. We were very proud of it. And when he quit his channel, he took them all down. I mean, we would get themes. Yeah. We had a post-apocalyptic show about the comics and that theme. We had a great show about heavy metal. And then when we did Sandman, we had a huge crowd in the early days of all this stuff you could do. The Google Hangouts or something. So
that is awesome. Howler Mouse still doing better than Breen and Dalton. Then yikes! Also, first appearance of Gail's foot connecting with Englandteen's backside.
So, do I take it we're not fans of Gail around here? I hope
no. Gail is my wife. She's the thing is, occasionally you'll see me turn away and I'll ask a question. You'll hear her voice.
I'm glad we clarified that.
Yeah. We love Gail around here a lot.
I was thinking to Miss Simone. I'm just leaving it at that.
No, we're not talking.
Well, we've never seen her, so it's possible.
Yeah, that I'm married to Gail Simone.
Oh, that'd be gold.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm okay with being a kept man, but damn, yes. So no, God, oh no, No, that's just sad.
Speaking of Dalton,
I would have left her after she tried to get Wang to be an actual word.
Well, if you wanted her to leave you, just get her a refrigerator with a bow around it. You know?
Yeah, definitely. What were you saying there, Breen?
I said, have you heard from Dalton lately?
Yeah, we do. We did a live stream together on the tourist on the homegrown tourist. Shill number 5.
See how I led you into that?
Yeah, not a lot of movement going to be on the homegrown tourist as far because they shut down Disney and everything. So yeah, we got a lot. We do have things to talk about over there as well. So once again, guys, I would love to hear your ideas for some topics, and most definitely, Haller, you're welcome back anytime. If you want to do this as a weekly thing, I don't think Eric would mind being third wheel.
Oh yeah, I'd love. Yeah,
I thought you were kicking me out altogether.
But you're not. You know tons about comics, man. Yeah, I don't think you're a third wheel on. As a matter of fact, knowledge wise, I may be the third wheel in this.
I tell you what, I feel like a drooling idiot listening to Haller tonight.
I know, right, dude? You got your stuff together. Well, for at least the ones you were talking about, you know what you're talking about. That's always a good thing. But it really is a lot of fun having you guys on. And most definitely, ladies and gentlemen, please leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe. Put this thing out there so we could get some people talking. We're going to be doing a top 10 every Tuesday because it's top 10 Tuesdays. And so come back for that. Let's see. Going to try to be doing a new series, and we're going to pop back Comic Book Thunderdome with prizes this time around. That's going to happen as well. So if you compete, and you win, you will get something every show, not just the championship. I've also picked out the championship book. So if you play, not only do you have a chance of winning one, but if you win the championship, you will be able to win that. And I'll tease you with it. Superman versus Muhammad Ali. I thought that would be the great finale prize, wouldn't it? That hardcover. That would be an awesome prize, right?
Sure. It's got
You've read this, right, Howler? Come on. You must have. It's awesome.
I think I got it somewhere in there. That's hilarious. Yeah.
But
a lot of great Easter eggs in there. On the cover.
There's a lot of fun. But anyway, once again, gang, stick around. Check out our other live streams. And as always, thank you very, very much for watching. We got something going on here. This is a fun stream, and hopefully you'll do this again next week, 10 o'clock. Well, you know me, 10:15. I always start things.
I thought what Nightwolf said was uncalled for.
Hashtag kick you. Oh, dude, you didn't even say kick you out. He just said kick you.
Yeah, I know.
It's like he doesn't want to see you leave. He just wants to see violence done to you.
But you have a hashtag now, Eric.
Yeah, there you go. Hashtag violence towards Eric Breen, apparently. Damn, Nightwolf. All right. Thank you very, very much for watching, gang. Have a good night.
Good night, kids.